Anita, bonjour, bienvenue à la maison. Thank you so much for joining me in my podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Just for you to know, Anita speaks perfectly French. And I just got caught up with that, but it's fantastic. So I'm just going to introduce you briefly, Anita. You are the founder of Ocean Lovers Festival. The last edition brought approximately 15,000 people in Bondi.
40,000.
40,000, my bad. So 40,000 people in Bondi. And the goal of the festival is to bring awareness of the condition of the oceans at the moment and help individuals to change their behavior towards the oceans and the planet. So it's a beautiful mission that you have in. You are as well a mom of 4 kids, so I can't wait to hear about your journey and your story. Thank you. Anita, let's start with the beginning. What is your journey, your background? Because you just came here and you say, I speak French, and you lived in France. Your dad is Swedish.
Yeah.
Tell me more about you.
So my parents actually came to Australia in 1970.
Okay.
When the immigration was actually paying for your trip if you stayed for 2 years. And my dad discovered Australia when he was in the Navy. My uncle and my father were the youngest Swedish sailors ever in the Olympic team for Sweden. So when my father went into the military service, he went into the Navy, and he was luckily born the same year of the King of Sweden, which was the prince at the time. So because the prince was doing his military service at the same time, they did a tour of the world, which is how he discovered Australia.
Amazing. Interesting.
And being a sailor and coming to this paradise, when he landed here, he was like, oh my God, this is where I want to live. I don't want to be dragging my boat across the ice anymore. I want to go and live in this country.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So then my parents moved over here, and I was born here.
Okay.
And when I was 6 months, we moved back to Sweden, and my sister was born, and they said, no, we can't stay here. They thought they were going to move home, but they didn't like it anymore. So we came back here 4 years later. And then when my parents separated, my mum had all her family in Europe, and we moved to Israel for 2 years.
Okay.
So I lived in Israel for a couple of years, came back here to live with my dad because this was always my home and my heart. I love Australia. But then my father was traveling a lot with work, so I ended up moving to France, and I finished my high school in France.
And Anita was living very close to the place where I studied, and we actually studied at different schools at different time, but these two schools are probably like 1 kilometer away from each other.
Yes, isn't that funny? Such
Small
a small world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then you came back here and
I came back here and became a mum not that much later. I traveled for a few years, and when I came back here, when I was 26, I had my first child.
Okay.
And I was a stay-at-home mum, and I loved that time of my life. It was my dream, being a mum when I was little. That was my number one goal. But then I became a single mum, and I did some personal training and did a couple of different jobs. When I was growing up in France, I worked with the Cannes Film Festival, I worked with the Monte Carlo Grand Prix and the ATP tennis tournament because I spoke lots of languages. So I worked as a hostess on a lot of those events. And when I came back here, I decided I was going to go into personal training, and then I worked in publishing and for a little while. And then I decided after a few years to start working with my dad, and my dad had always been an entrepreneur and had lots of great ideas, but he was a bit more retired, and he had an idea about this big event to do, Ocean Lovers, the birth of Ocean Lovers. So he wanted to do a sailing event around Australia with, reality TV shows and competing in lots of different water sports and stopping off in all these places and doing beautiful festivals. And, really, it was quite vast. And I just thought, I'm at home with 4 kids, 3 under 5. I don't think I can pull that one off, but I pulled out the festival concept because I thought, I really want to do something that's going to make a difference for my children. Because I felt so privileged to grow up and in a time where, I lived near the water. We spent our summers every day in the sun when I was here, when I was in France. And we didn't have to worry about what was happening with the climate because we were completely unaware.
Yes.
But once you're aware of something, you can't go back. So I thought, now I have to do something so that my children are not going to have to worry about that. And funnily enough, like the climate, 1 in 3 children suffers severe climate anxiety.
I didn't
from
know.
a young age.
Okay.
And I didn't know that at the time either. I found out a couple of years ago because the University of Tasmania did a big study in collaboration with other universities. And I was really surprised. I wasn't surprised to find it out, to be honest, but because we didn't have to worry about those kind of things. So I wanted to do something that would make a difference. And I thought, when people have time off, they don't want to go and be told what to do and be educated. They want to have fun. So that's why we wanted to make it a festival where people come, feel hopeful, feel inspired, and walk away feeling empowered to make a difference.
So you were at home with 4 kids, a single mom, and so you were thinking about all of this. So where was the first step? What did you start with?
I got introduced through some of my dad's sailing connections that were in the America's Cup to the ambassador of Monaco to Australia.
Okay.
And when I met with them, I told them about my idea because there's a strong connection with sailing, and I told them what I was going to do and that we're about to launch a first festival. And they invited me over to Monaco because they were about to launch their first Monaco Ocean Week.
Perfect.
So I went over, I said to my husband at the time, because we were still married, and my kids were only very little. My youngest one was 2 at the time. I said, listen, I've had a big opportunity. I'm putting this on my credit card and you're just going to have to take a couple of weeks off work because I can't miss this opportunity. So I flew over, I got into the plane, and I just remember feeling this rush of anxiety, thinking, oh my God, I'm about to fly to the other end of the world. What if something happens to my kids? The little one was 2. It was so stressful.
I can imagine. It's the first thing you probably think. If something happens to them, I'm so far away.
I know. So I almost felt like saying, stop the plane, I'm getting out. But I didn't. I kept going. And once I got to France, I felt fine, spoke to them. They didn't even seem phased. I was the one that was so panicked about everything, and they were absolutely fine. And had an amazing time, went to Monaco Ocean Week, met with the Prince Albert Foundation, met with the Oceanographic Museum. They gave me a couple of new contacts. And after I left there, they endorsed the project, which was a great step for me. So I knew that I had some really strong support behind me, especially before we'd even started. And then I flew to America to visit a French girlfriend of mine that I met in Australia, who I hadn't seen for 10 years, and she's my best friend. And she flew with me actually to Texas, to EarthX, which is the biggest environmental festival in the world.
Okay.
And they do about 10 days, and they get 125,000 people through. I met with Sylvia Earle there, and she's been one of my inspirations and one of my heroes. And so Sylvia Earle was named the first hero for the planet by Time magazine.
Thank you.
She's probably almost 90 now, if not 90. And she is kind of like the Sir David Attenborough of the ocean, if you want to put it that way. She started something called Hope Spots, which is pristine areas in the ocean that need to be protected because they're important for the long-term health of the ocean. And she started that off the back end of a TEDx talk.
Okay.
And she got major funding for it, and she's got Rolex as a supporter and some very big support. So when I met her, I said, oh my God, you're my hero. I'm going to nominate a Hope Spot in Sydney, and I'm starting this festival and blah, blah, blah. And I was blabbing off to her, and I thought she probably thinks I'm a lunatic. Anyway, she signed a book for me, and she said, to Anita, champion for our oceans.
Wow.
And I felt blessed. And I came back here, and I felt really empowered by the time I came back to make a difference. So we went to present the festival to Waverley Council, which was our first step, because I thought Bondi, I've been living there for 30 years, and I thought, what better stage to launch a festival? It's got a real community feel, but it's got an international appeal. And I've been there for a long time, so I've got good contacts. And we presented it to the council, and they just thought, wow, this is like a perfect fit with our sustainability plans and everything. So they came on board as a partner and gave us all the venues in kind, and actually wrote us into their 10-year cultural plan, which was amazing.
Yes.
So we did our first festival, all passion, no pay. Like it took 3-4 years to make any return or even pay myself. But the first festival was a great success. We launched a Sydney Coast Hope Spot, which was a big thing because you need a lot of scientific evidence. I had to get Australian Marine Conservation Society and Save Our Marine Life, which is a conglomerate of 26 different marine organisations, to back scientifically why it should be a hope spot and why we need to protect it. And we launched that at the first festival. So we had Mission Blue fly over from the States, which is Sylvia Earle Alliance Mission Blue Foundation.
Okay.
And they launched the Hope Spot with us from the Icebergs Pool in Bondi. And then we had about 15,000 people through our first festival.
Okay, my bad. So it was the first
The
festival,
first one.
yes.
Yeah. And we had like films and a swim and markets, and it was lovely. It was a great experience. A lot of work, but a great experience. And it made me recognize that I had a lot more capability than I thought, because, you know, being a stay-at-home mum, I wasn't thinking about, you know, you don't push yourself in the same way. I felt confident as a parent that I could do everything I needed for my kids, but I'd never gone out on a limb on that level as an entrepreneur. My dad's always been an entrepreneur, and my mum as well, but that wasn't me and my nature. And then I recognized that, you know, the biggest crime in life is not to try.
Exactly.
Because if you try and someone says no, well, then nothing
Worse
lost.
is no, yeah, exactly.
Nothing lost. But if you try and it does work, wow, it's like such a confidence boost, and it makes you realize that the only limitations are the ones we set for ourselves.
Absolutely. That's so interesting. So I'm so glad you have been able to travel to the US and Monaco and got this motivation as well and this support, proving you that you were actually doing something right. You were on the right direction. I'm very surprised that, knowing Australia, most of habitants in Australia on the coast, nothing like that was created before. So it was such an innovation at that time.
Absolutely.
As you said, you started with, for a few years, just all passion, no pay. How did you keep pushing? You know, was it because the mission is really honorable and you wanted to change, you know, the mentalities?
To be honest, second year we got cancelled because of COVID, and we had 4 cancellations. And after pushing for so much time to get the festival up and running, it was like someone telling me, you've been pregnant for 9 months and now you're not allowed to give birth.
Yeah.
So this is not an option. I have to succeed. And then to make things a little bit more complicated, after COVID, my husband and I separated, or during COVID, sort of during that whole COVID episode. And I had to turn a passion project into something that was going to pay my bills. So I had every drive. There was not even an option for me to fail. I had to succeed for my kids' sake, and because I knew that I was on a real important mission. And I didn't want to go out and work for someone else, because I would never have the drive and the energy to do what I do if it wasn't doing something that I love and that I feel is important. And I feel like I found my life's purpose. It's made it easy to put. When I say easy to push, there's been lots of challenges, but it's made it possible for me to push through.
So how did you manage COVID? Festival is cancelled. You are in the break of getting separated with your husband. You have 4 kids at home. God help us all. How did you manage that? How did you manage or save, or maybe you didn't, your mental health?
Homeschooling was a disaster.
Surprise, surprise.
And when we cancelled the second time or the third time, I was just like, phew, because I could not work from home, manage the kids' schooling, and do everything else. And my daughter, who's 25 now, she'd just finished school and she was doing her first year of uni.
Okay.
She was amazing. She dropped a couple of classes, which has made her uni take a bit longer, to help me with some of the homeschooling, because it was just all too much. Yeah. It was a lot. And you just got to know sometimes when to step back, and, you know, it just slowing down a little bit doesn't mean you're stopping. And I didn't, but I just had to slow down a bit and go, look, it is what it is. I can't change this. This is a global, you know, this is affecting everybody around the globe. It's not just affecting me. So it is what it is. Try and enjoy that time with the kids, and not drop the ball, because if I drop the ball, it's not going to happen. So we kept pushing the new dates and trying to, and then when we eventually got out of the COVID time, we had that incredible rain in 2022 in March. So we had to cancel the festival 5 days out and move it to April. So that was the second. It was, yeah, so difficult.
Was it the biggest challenge that you had with the festival, or?
It was definitely a big challenge. The biggest challenge was probably the first year when we had Corona that was going to come on board as a sponsor.
Yes.
And 10 days before, about 10 or 12 days before Christmas, and the festival was going to be in April, they said, listen, there's been lots of internal changes, and they were being bought out by Asahi, and there was lots of stuff happening, and they said, we're not going to be able to follow through. And this was just before they were meant to sign a contract.
Of course.
So I'm like, oh my God, how are we going to manage? And we were so fortunate that one of my business partner, Kaz, and she's incredible. She's been in media and PR for 30 years, and she's got a passion for environment, and she started the Vivid Festival. She did the Sydney New Year's Eve fireworks. She's just done the America's Cup or Women and Youth team for Australia in Barcelona this last year. And a friend of hers who was in media and PR as well had Volvo as a client, and presented to them. And the connection between the Swedish and the sailing and the sustainability and everything was amazing. And on the 23rd of December, that first year, they signed. So that got us just over the line.
So it was actually probably a good thing, finally.
It really
because
was.
I cannot see any better. Like, Volvo makes probably way more sense than Corona. No
Totally,
offense, you know?
totally.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's funny how life goes sometimes. And I was going to ask you this question: how did you manage to get this huge sponsor?
Yeah.
So that the way that's fantastic. That's really interesting.
Absolutely. So they signed on for a 3-year naming rights partnership after being involved with us for 2 years, which was great.
Okay.
So that really got us through that time, and we would never have gotten through that time without them.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so what's the most impactful moment that you had with the festival?
The schools programs for me are one of the most impactful, because to actually see the school children down there and see their faces light up when they're driving an underwater drone or building seahorse hotels and doing all these really cool hands-on engaging activities, I could already see and feel in my heart that we've just changed these kids' life and their future, because now they've got this spark, and we've put a seed in them for the future. So even if that seed doesn't, start to grow now, it will definitely start to grow at some stage.
So the school, so you are involved with schools, and the school come to the festival around that time? Or
So we launched the school program in the second year.
Yes.
And it started with a competition called Literati, where the students create artworks out of things that could end up in the ocean. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and then they share their story, their message for the ocean. So that we did in the second year, and that's really started to take some momentum now. And we have about 18 to 30 finalists that get displayed at the festival, and then the winners go to the Maritime Museum afterwards, which is a great opportunity for the kids.
That's very good. You must read and see faces and read some beautiful things.
We do. We have parents that come in there and say, oh my God, the only thing you're missing in this exhibition is a tissue box. Because when you're reading these children's messages, it's so heartfelt. And, it makes you realize that actually our future is in good hands, because these children are growing up in a different time, and they really do have so much passion, and they care so much. And as long as we nurture that, then we know that we'll have a future generation of, advocates for our ocean and for our environment.
That's beautiful. So
after the Literati competition, which we've been doing for a few years now, we launched last year a competition called Fish Tank.
Okay.
And that's our complete write-off on Shark Tank. So children, we're fishing for good ideas for the ocean, and we have $10,000 in prize money. And we've had some incredible entries. So we had 38 entries in our first year last year, and 10 finalists that did 1-minute video pictures and came down to the festival to be presented their prizes. And they just had incredible ideas, from artificial upwelling to solar panels on cargo ships. They're so creative. So that's growing as well. And these competitions, like they culminate at the festival, but they go out already in term 2 of the year, so they can do them during the year, and then they come to the festival the next year. So that's building an ongoing connection with schools. And now this year we're launching a new Ocean Smart Schools program that's going to go into schools as well.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing school incursions. But during the festival, we also have an excursion day where the kids come down, like I said, and do all the underwater drones and, learning about microplastics and all kinds of different things, hearing from really inspirational speakers, looking at seal poop under microscopes and learning about algae and everything. It's so intriguing for them. And then we do a high schools day that we launched last year called the Sea Science Student Expo, and that's aimed at year 9 to 12 students to show them all the possibilities when they finish high school and career paths in ocean streams, from being a marine scientist, which is the more logical ones, to accounting and technology and innovation and so many other streams of work available. And I feel like students today, or young people, are really more inclined to go into things that they're passionate about. They're not just worried about the paycheck at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
They're really worried about, or more concerned about, doing something that they feel connected to.
Absolutely. All I could think was I need to hook you up with the school where Noah, my son, goes. Yeah. But we can talk about that.
They've been involved.
Ah, okay.
Yes,
that's
and,
good.
and yes, I'll definitely share some things with you to share with them again.
Perfect. And can you just give us a few highlights on what's happening at the moment in the oceans? The general situation, if you could.
Yeah,
No?
There's a lot. Look, there's some major things happening in the ocean. I mean, the first thing everybody thinks of is ocean plastic.
Yeah.
And according to the scientists, that's probably 6 down the list. It's not good, but there's a lot of things. Ocean acidification is a big problem.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the oceans have been taking the heat for, all our carbon dioxide and everything that's happening in the environment. And they can only hold it for so long. So that's changing the acidification of the ocean, which is really, it's terrible. We've lost 90% of the big fish in the ocean in the last 50 years.
That's really bad. What about the fishing? Like, is it like, I'm not talking about the fishing, but
not one fish.
Yeah, exactly. The industrial fishing, and there is something that it's probably not fully related, but still very related. There are still many countries in the world that kill whales, dolphins.
That's terrible. It's not regulated enough.
Yes.
There should be global regulation for all those things. And it's very difficult because no one owns a lot of the seas. Australia's got one of the biggest ocean territories in the world, and we can manage what happens with ours. But then, there's borders, and you get illegal fishers coming on the borderlines and things like that. And then they just drop all their nets, and poor turtles and seals and things are getting, even whales, getting caught up in these nets, and they die slow, painful deaths.
That's terrible.
All the nets that are at the beaches, there's big debate about those coming out at the moment.
Yes.
And that's exciting because really they kill fish and they don't protect people.
Exactly.
It's really a false sense of security for people thinking. But, if you look at Bondi Beach, for example, if you imagine that you have a couple of volleyball nets that are scattered and there's space underneath them, space on top of them, space on the left, space on the right, it doesn't really help.
It doesn't. I think this was probably, it was installed many, many years ago. I guess we probably didn't have the awareness that we have these days. But I read about that, and I was very happy to hear that they are going to get removed finally.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
But there's a lot of people that are still very worried. The thing is that we have so many new technologies that can actually do a better job at protecting people and protecting the wildlife.
I mean,
and then there's another big problem that's going on is the deep sea mining.
Yes.
They're trying to mine the deep sea for batteries for EV vehicles and for all these different things. And if they take these rocks, literal carbon rocks that have sunk to the bottom of the ocean, that have been there for millions of years, and they start stirring and releasing that, we have no idea what the long-term consequences are going to be. We're showing a film at the festival called Deep Rising, which is all about that. And there's actually a big gathering happening in Jamaica at that time. They're trying to stop that, but a disaster if they start that deep sea mining.
This
If
is
people
just-
aren't aware of things,
No.
they can't change it.
But that's the thing.
And that's the whole purpose of the festival. So we can put people in front of things, because change happens from the top down and from the bottom up. And if we want our community to be better advocates to their local MPs and for the government, and for the government to actually make change, we've got to accelerate that. People need to actually be better educated. So one of our biggest goals is education and awareness.
Yes.
Increasing awareness. The more people we can, make more aware and understand what's going on, the more they can become ocean advocates in their own way and encourage behaviour change. And we did a survey at the festival last year, and 80% of the people that came to the festival said they felt inspired to make a change. 68% said they learned something new.
That's amazing.
And that's the only way things are going to change.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's absolutely fair. Bring awareness. People don't know. People don't know, and they cannot do anything
Can't
about
fix
it.
what you don't know.
Exactly. When is the next festival?
The next festival is in March this year, and we've taken the big leap of faith and gone from 4 to 5 days in Bondi to a whole month across Sydney.
That's amazing.
Yes, it's
you will
very
reach more
exciting.
people.
So it's going to reach a lot more people.
Yes.
We have some wonderful new partners that have come on board. We've got Darling Harbour as a second precinct. We've got about 5 or 6 precincts around Sydney now. So we're going to have another markets and showcase down in Darling Harbour, which is coinciding with Climate Action Week.
Okay.
So we're collaborating with Climate Action Week on that. We're going to have markets, a sustainable floating boat show, partnering with a dive show that's going into the ICC the same weekend on the 15th and 16th. We're going to have a Trashin show, and Sofitel's come on board to support that, which is exciting. IMAX is doing ocean documentaries from Thursday to Sundays across the whole month of March. So hopefully people will take their families and go down and support. Maritime Museum are hosting a range of events. We've got boat trips across Sydney Harbour to visit restoration sites and learn about some of the amazing restoration projects happening in Sydney Harbour. What else
You
have we
have
got
a
on?
lot.
Sustainable cooking classes at the fish markets with celebrity and Indigenous chefs.
That's
So,
cool.
the thing is, you've got to intercept with people where they're at, and not
Yes.
everybody knows. Not everybody is here, and you don't want people to feel like, well, because I don't know enough, I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
So some people want to be vegan and they don't want to eat seafood. Some people just want to know how to do things better and say, okay, well, if you want to eat seafood, there are more sustainable options. So come and learn about it. So we're really excited. We've got lots of new precincts coming on board, and then we've got some beach cleans with Clean Up Australia.
You are definitely increase the reach and the awareness on the situation. That's fantastic. Where can we find all this information? On your website?
On the website, oceanloversfestival.com, and you can follow our socials as well. We'll have lots of information starting to go out. Our talks program is going to be incredible down at Bondi Beach on the 22nd and 23rd of March. We've got some incredible films. Right? We've got some fundraising swims if people want to get involved. The Bondi Salties are going to be doing a couple of fundraising swims. Ice bath challenge, sunrise yoga.
That's cool.
Something for everyone.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
make sure to check out the program.
I wanted to ask you, so it's going to be a really big edition.
Huge.
Yes. Are you ready? How do you manage all of this? You have a good team, I guess.
We have a great team. It's not a big team, but it is growing. There's still opportunities for people to get involved. So if people want to sponsor, partner, we also take donations. So there's lots of opportunities for people to support, to help us increase our impact. And we've even actually just had a very generous donor that's given us $100,000 in match funds. So anyone that puts money in between now and the festival will double their impact.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, there's some good opportunities.
So for someone who was a single mom and didn't think once had an entrepreneur flair or won't be able to do something like that, you pull up something pretty huge. So I want to say, I think it was in you just didn't know you had it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
It's like Tony Robbins says, awaken the giant within.
Exactly.
We all have it.
Yes.
But, it just takes courage to find it.
Absolutely. And push this door and get out of the comfort zone. We never know what is on the other side.
You never grow when you're in your comfort zone. You only grow when you step outside.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, just more about you. Who inspire you at the moment and how did they impact you?
So I've got to say my mum and my dad have been huge role models for me in life because they left home at a very young age. They've traveled, they're very entrepreneurial, very international, and not afraid to try anything. So they've been huge role models in I think, setting me up for success. My business partners have been an incredible mentor because I came into this event space with no experience on this to run an event on this level. I have a lot of passion and a lot of drive, and I'm not scared to try anything, but I would not have been able to pull this off without her. And then Valerie Taylor,
Yes.
she's actually come on board as our patron. She is one of my biggest role models. She's just been incredible. She's not a scientist. She's the biggest ocean lover I've ever met. And, she's done so much to protect the grey nurse sharks. She protected the grey nurse sharks over 40 years ago. It was the first shark ever to be protected, and it's still critically endangered. So, what people don't understand is that these creatures are apex predators, and as much as you can be scared of them, if they're not in the picture, then the balance of the whole ecosystem in the ocean goes out.
Would you have thought a few years ago that Valerie will be your patron and your festival would be so huge and, had a real impact on people?
I definitely believed that it would, but it's just amazing to see it all come to fruition. And for Valerie to come on board as a patron it helps me help her keep her legacy going, which is really important to me. Mission Blue and Sylvia Earle Alliance as well. We just received a Rolex. We've just received a Rolex grant from through Mission Blue for our schools program to help film our high schools program so we can take it to lots more schools across the country.
That's amazing.
Which is really exciting. And it's, look, I remember when I walked into Prince Albert Foundation in Monaco thinking, who am I? I'm just like a stay-at-home mum. I was still a stay-at-home mum at that stage, walking into these people. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. My dad was an Olympic sailor. Prince Albert was an Olympic skier. And, all these people have done all these things, but I know that I've got an idea that's right for its time. And so as long as I'm given that stage to be heard, I can do something positive with it. And it was nice to feel, on an equal part and accepted and not looked at. I felt like I was going to be looked at as a stay-at-home mum.
Yeah, but you were not.
No.
Oh, we put too much in our minds sometimes.
We do.
Yes.
We do.
One more thing. Do you have any advice for anyone who would like to start something as well but doesn't know where to start or how to start?
Yeah, I think it's all about putting your focus in the right place, making sure you spend time on it every day. If you don't work on something every day, it's not going to happen. And then you've just got to know when to take that leap of faith and go, okay, now I'm going to go 100%. Because when you have a plan B, you're never going to work properly on your plan A. When you're 100% confident that you can do it, you've just got to go with it. And there'll always be some doubts. So you might not have that 100% confidence, but you've just got to go, okay, I'm not even going to worry about plan B. Let me just go all in, because if I don't go all in, it's not going to happen.
Amazing.
Don't be afraid.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Anita. C'était fantastic. And please reach to Anita or go on the website directly to look what is coming in March. Very exciting events coming up that we should all be involved with.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Anita. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup à toi.